there, this is Cece here with another Tutorial Tuesday. Today I'd like to talk to you about another Viva Decor product, the Paper Soft Color. Paper Soft Color is basically ink in a jar, and it comes in 20 different rich colors. What's so special about this ink is that each jar holds 75 milliliters of ink, so it does last for a very long time. The other interesting thing is its mechanism. Here's what it looks like inside. When you get your jar and it is brand new, you'll see that the sponge might not have any color to it. And I'll show you how to get that color into that top sponge. And there's a sponge on top, and there's also a sponge on the contour of the jar, and the ink is in the middle. So as you can see, the sponge gets really saturated with ink. Now, one tool you're going to need when you work with Paper Soft Color is a sponge brush. And here I have one that is sold by Viva Decor as well. And it comes in a package with 3 big brushes and a small one. And basically, you pounce your sponge brush over the top sponge of your jar, and with a circular motion, apply the ink onto your surface. So there are many different ways you can use the Paper Soft Color. You can create your own background papers for your scrapbook pages or your cards. You can also use Paper Soft for stamping and stenciling, and I'll show you each technique. So here I want to show you my first technique, which is using 2 different colors to blend a beautiful background. And I wanted to mention that you should be using 1 sponge brush per color so as not to contaminate your inks. I just wanted to point out that the blue jar on the right is a brand new that I opened up. And as you can see, there's some white sponge showing through, and that's because it's brand new. But as you start using it, as you pounce on the top sponge, you'll see the sponge get saturated with the ink, and it'll remain this way until you run out of ink, basically. So I've already started applying my first color, which is the light blue, and I'm using circular motions to apply the ink. And it's better to start light as opposed to starting very dark. You can't really take off the ink once you've applied it to your cardstock. So you can build over layer by layer if you want to achieve a darker color. So now I've switched to my second color, which is the light green moss. And again, using the same circular motion, I'm going to apply that color and going over my first color as well so that it gives the blended effect. And here's a closer view. As you can see, the blue and the greens have started to blend together quite well. So this is my first attempt at making the background. Now I noticed that my colors are quite muted and I wanted a pop of color, so I'm bringing in another type of green. This one is moss green. The other one that I used was light moss green. So I've added my moss green, and I noticed that the edges where the colors meet are way too pronounced for me. So I'm going to be applying more ink, but with a different technique. This time I'm going to pounce on my paper with my sponge brush. And I love this effect. It just brings in another texture, and it softens up the whole look of my background paper, which I really enjoy. There's my finished background. Next, I want to show you how to blend 3 different colors over a stencil. And here I'm using a stencil by Creative Imaginations from their Existential Expressions line. And the first color I'm using is a bright yellow. Then I'm going over the rest of the image with the light moss green, and ending with the dark green. And towards the end of it, I'm just pouncing over the edges just to soften everything up, and it gives quite a nice look, as you can see here. here's another tip I'd like to share with you. These sponge brushes are totally washable, and because the Paper Soft ink is water-based, they're very easy to wash. I just went over my sink, ran it under the water, squeezed the water out, and as you can see, my brush comes out clear. For my next technique, I'm going to be using this flexible stencil by Viva Decor, and they're really fun to play with. They're very thin, they're sticky back, so you don't have to worry about the image or the stencil shifting on you. And you just apply your stencil over your paper. So here I'm rubbing my fingers over the stencil just to make sure that it's really adhered properly onto my cardstock. And using the small sponge brush now, I'm going to go over the entire design with the moss green color. And the reason why I'm using a small brush is that I don't want to go over the stencil and risking putting some ink onto the rest of my paper, because I might use the entire piece of cardstock as a decoration onto a card. And now the big reveal, I'll just remove the flexible stencil, and it peels off quite beautifully actually. And yes, I have a little stain on my paper, but I'll fix that later. And I also wanted to show you how I clean the stencil, because the ink is still wet on top. I don't want to contaminate my other things that are on my work surface. So I just use a baby wipe and I just remove the excess ink. The stencil might be stained after I've used it, but at least it will be clean. It won't contaminate my other projects. So I just use a baby wipe, and then I go over it with a dry cloth and then put it back onto my backing sheet from the package. Another cool thing to do with the Paper Soft color is creating a shadow around an image. And here I have my stenciled image, and I went ahead and ran it through my Big Shot with a circles nestabilities. And what I want to do is I just want to create, before I remove the nestabilities off my paper, I just want to create a very faint shadow around my image. And there's my finished shadowing. And as for my last technique, we're going to stamp with the Paper Soft color. And here, as you can see, I have my acrylic stamp, and that is from a Viva Decor stamp set. And again, we have many different designs at the store. And the key to a successful stamping with the Paper Soft is not to add too much ink to your stamp. Otherwise, you will lose some of the definition, especially if you use a stamp that has very detailed images. So here again, I'm using my sponge brush to add the color, being finicky with it. And then I just simply stamp. And you have quite a bit of time to react because the ink stays wet for a while. And there's my image. And here I wanted to show you my two finished cards. The one on the left is using the stenciled image, and the other one is the stamped image. And I also used pearl pens to create the pearl effects in the scallop circle as well as in the middle of the leaves. And on the one on the right, I used a glitter pen, and I'll be doing another tutorial on these two products soon. So to recap, you've seen me use different techniques with the Paper Soft color. The first one was the background with just blending different colors. And next we use the plastic stencils. These are existential expressions. Of course, we have other designs. We have the Crafters Workshop stencils that will work well. And also you've seen me use those flexible stencils by Viva Decor. And unfortunately, because the packaging is white on white, it is tough to see, but we've got, again, quite a few designs in the store. These are just the Christmas ones that I'm showing you, but there are many, many other to choose from. And in addition to those small stencils, we do have 12 by 12 stencils as well. And this one is the Viva Decor. We have existential stencils as well as Crafters Workshop. So there is a multitude of stencils that you can choose from for different themes. And here's an example of what this stencil looks like. This was not using the paper soft, but rather the embossing cream. I just wanted to show you what the stencil looked like. It's quite beautiful. And on this embellishment, she used the graphite paper soft color to go over a raised embossed image to give it that grunge look. I hope this inspires you to try the paper soft colors. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.